From the new recording lair located deep beneath the Wine and Spirit store in Ephrata, Pennsylvania.
You're listening to the Masonic Light Podcast.
Studio 665 presents Masonic Light Podcast. This show is recorded by Masons, for Masons, and is for entertainment purposes only. And please, no wagering.
This podcast is not endorsed by any Grand Lodge, and the ridiculous ramblings of the hosts are their own. And now, here's your host.
Yay! Hey, everybody, it's the Masonic Light Podcast.
Konnichiwa.
Yes.
Umgawa.
Tim Dedman here. This is episode number 172.
Nice. One sound. Several.
Unreal.
Yes, several. Episode several. Very good. We have a full house tonight.
Yay.
We have Larry and Jack and Josh. And our special guest tonight is author and all-around Masonic good guy, Chris Rooley.
Whoa.
Whoa. You've been promoted.
How was that?
Whoa. Boy.
Nice.
Checks
It's
in the
good to
mail.
see everybody. Larry, how's your voice tonight?
So far, so good.
Yeah, look at that, man. Oh, it sounds good.
Yeah.
It didn't even crack. You know,
Give it time.
well, you know, Turkey Hill came out with that new tea, and ever since then,
You know, we've been trying to get them to be a sponsor
I know,
for
they
a long
should be.
time.
Yeah.
As much as we drink this damn tea, you'd
Yeah.
think they'd... Oh,
yeah,
never mind.
absolutely.
Give you kidneys.
All right. Well, tonight's episode, as always, is brought to you by George J. Grove and Son,
There it is.
Hiram Solomon Cigars, Scott Helm Electric, Intermezzo by Stephanie.
Heck yeah.
And we've got some of her product here tonight.
We brought some chocolate in. And
By the way, we need to pass that around.
you're going to
That-
hear us eating it later.
That's
So
going to pair well
it'll be
with
good.
our iced tea. And then also, most importantly, you who are our patrons on Patreon. Now, I'm going to ask our guest. He auditioned for this earlier
For one humble dollar.
for as little as one
No, I'm adding it.
Okay.
For
No,
he's
one
ad-
humble
he's
dollar,
ad-libbing.
one humble dollar. Okay,
you too can join and support this podcast.
well done.
$1.
$1.
One freaking dollar.
One freaking dollar.
Come on,
One
people.
George Washington.
One George
Step it
Washington.
up, people.
That's right.
This is how we get people like Chris into the studio.
Yeah. He
So
drove all the
this
way up
is
here from
he
Washington,
drove
D.C.
all the way
area.
up here, and we're helping out with his expenses.
Yep.
Thank you.
So that's
Good.
that's where your
what
money
this is
goes.
for, yeah.
Seriously,
absolutely.
we've had 3 new Patreons this month.
Really?
Nice.
We can. That group continues to grow. It's amazing. You know, we
He's looking at you, Larry, like there's a punchline in that somewhere.
It's like our audience. It continues to grow.
Older.
Yes.
Worldwide, universal. I mean, it's
Intergalactic.
unbelievable, the growth that we have. Yeah.
We'll talk a little bit more about that
we definitely will.
a little later in the
Will we?
show when we're going to talk about what we've been doing, and as a result of that, I'll talk about some new listeners that I know we got.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Are they in some weird foreign country that
No,
we don't know anything about?
right here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Nice.
It's weird foreign country. It's up around State College, so it's
That
weird.
is weird. Yeah.
You know, it's amazing.
They got cows and stuff up there. It's
So you brothers who are listening in State College, no offense.
Welcome as listeners. We appreciate you listening to us.
Hi, guys.
We'll talk about that. All right, let's talk about what we've been doing lately. Jack, it looks like you're prepared.
I'm looking at my cheat sheet here, and I wasn't here at the last recording. So before that,
But where were you?
I was at Mannheim Lodge.
Yes, you were.
I was offering up some helpful hints. I'm part of that committee, the Grand Lodge Committee on Membership Growth and Engagement. And so I was talking to, give him chocolate, Larry, chocolate.
Feed me.
So there was that, and then we had on Saturday, I did another one of those presentations at Lafayette Hills for a collection of district deputies and stuff. I spoke at Millersville Lodge.
Millerton.
Lamberville. They hate when I call it Lamberville. I spoke at Millersville Lodge, and let's see what else. Oh, and Thursday of last week, I spoke at Christiana Lodge, where I once again did the stump the speaker test, and I got one stump. And the fella asked, "Do you know the relationship between the Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania building and the Philadelphia Flower Show?"
Ooh.
I was stumped. I'll admit it. Turns out the Philadelphia Flower Show was started by a bunch of Philadelphia Masons who were raising money for the construction of the temple. So it started as a fundraiser, and then they eventually turned it over to whoever's running it now. But so I was stumped, and there I've shared my nugget of useless knowledge for the day. So you're all better for having known me. And then what? I had yesterday.
Yep.
Yesterday we had a stated meeting here at Ephrata Lodge, number 665, and it was our official visitation by our district deputy grand master, and he brought some guy with him, Larry something, the Right Worshipful Grand Master of Masons of Pennsylvania and Masonic jurisdictions thereunto belonging. We were packed. We had a fantastic dinner downstairs. Kudos to the stewards of our lodge, in particular Mike Sakel, who, in spite of the fact that he had no idea how many people were coming, had exactly the right amount of food to feed 130 people.
Wow.
And it came off great. I'm so proud of my lodge. My officers did a great job. The whole thing came off without a hitch, and it was really wonderful. And we appreciate Larry being here for that. And I was given. We have another sponsor, and I've got to promote him as we had in the past. Masonic Timepiece.
Oh yeah.
We've promoted him before. Barry Thiel was on the show a year or so ago, and he's producing a series of watches, and he made one specific, a one of one, custom made for the Grand Master that he presented here yesterday to the Grand Master, and I was presented just out of friendship with him. One of these watches, and
two of one,
and it is absolutely gorgeous. I cursed him because I had finally given up wearing a wristwatch until I got this one, and this one is too awesome to not wear.
Very
so
cool.
If you're looking to tell someone you love what to get you for Christmas or some other gift, Masonic Timepiece. Mine is the Master Mason, has a square and compasses on the face, but it is an absolutely beautiful timepiece, and I am really proud to wear it.
Father's Day is right around the corner.
It absolutely is. It's way better than socks, and it keeps time. So thank you, Barry, for that. We appreciate it. We appreciate you. So that
Very
was
cool. All right.
That's my build-up.
Larry.
What?
What?
So we're talking about watches. All right.
What have you been doing?
What have I been doing?
Oh my God.
Good question.
We've only been doing this show for 8 years.
Yeah. Okay. This is weird. On Monday, I have down Pete from 7 to 8 p.m. I have no idea.
That was at Phantom Power.
That was the
anniversary.
memorial remembrance thing.
Okay.
I take it you didn't go.
No, I didn't go.
I did not go either.
Lodge meeting on.
Several of us did, however, raise a glass in
Yes.
Pete's
Yes, we
memory.
did. Yes, we did.
Yes.
Lodge meeting on Tuesday, and we had First Ladies Night,
Yeah.
which is what we call our widows.
Very good.
Well attended, and we had a special guest speaker that night, Jack Harley.
Guy's a jackass.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
What do you
here's
talk about?
the thing. He talked about the Holy Saint John again. And I'm thinking, oh, God, not again. And I'm thinking, so he started talking about it, and he was presenting it. I said, geez, this is really good.
Because he didn't
What
remember
happened
it
to
from the
first-
last two times he's heard it.
No, it was, I said, I came to the conclusion that, number one, the first time you gave it, I didn't listen,
Well,
which is possible.
that.
This
That
is
is
probable.
possible.
Or secondly, when I walked out the door, I totally forgot what you said.
Also
and that's possible too.
I have that effect on women as well. Yeah.
But it was great. Jack did, it was a fantastic presentation. We had a very good meeting. And on Wednesday, Tall Cedars Executive Board meeting. And let's see here on Friday. Oh, on Thursday, Goose and Gridiron.
Yes, imagine that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Friday, no, that was it. Okay, that was it. It was a busy week.
That's a busy week for you,
It
Larry.
was for me, yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely.
All right, Josh.
I made an attempt to get to lodge meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
Because
no,
I,
you
I
really
wanted
did.
to support Jack, and I heard it was Larry's birthday also.
It was.
Oh, yeah, it was.
Did you get chocolate?
No, they don't get it anymore, apparently. 50 years, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I was stuck working that day, but yeah,
The big event, though, was in November.
Right.
I will
when
be there
I
for
get
that.
my
Definitely.
gold pin. That's important. I'm looking forward to that.
Excellent. Brother Chris,
Yes.
tell us what you've been up to recently.
What's the time frame?
Whatever you want to make it.
Well, I came back from the Conference of Grand Masters. That was a fun event where I spoke at the Phil Lathy's luncheon. Met a couple Grand Masters, including some guy from Pennsylvania, which
Yeah.
was nice.
Uh-huh.
I am the sitting commander of my commandery. So last week we had our commandery meeting. That was great. I mean, did a little full form ritual for those of you who understand what that means. So that was it. And then writing, but we'll talk about that
We will talk
in a
about
bit,
that.
I suspect.
Wait,
By the way-
do you write stuff? Cool.
I may.
By the way, Jack,
Yo.
we need to tell Intermezzo by Stephanie that these pair very well with that tea.
Yes.
I will encourage that.
I will hear remark, however.
Yeah, not that it well, anyway. So it came to light that there are people in the larger world that think that Intermezzo by Stephanie is some sort of gag company that we created for the purposes of the show.
Yeah.
It's not. It's my wife's real company.
And all of
So-
our sponsors
totally
are real.
totally delicious.
Totally real.
Totally real.
Yeah.
And if you need a gift, she does gift boxes and will ship anywhere. And, intermezzobystephanie.com.
I
Thank you
honestly
very much.
thought she taught music.
That's-
Intermezzo. So, yeah, of course.
It's a pause.
Piano classes.
It's a pause between.
Yes, intermezzo.
Yes, exactly.
So I was like, oh, shit, that's great.
Well, I've usually, as usual, been a busy little boy lately. Of
course.
I'm part of a Grand Lodge team of folks that are working with lodges on their audits, and I got to tell you, maybe I shouldn't. I'm not. Let's just say, get your audits done. Your dues are paid. Get your audits done. Eureka West Shore Lodge number 302 held our stated meeting on the 4th. On the 6th and 7th, we held extra meetings where we initiated two people into the fraternity. Had new guys giving the degrees, which was great for both of them. I think for both. I know the guy who conferred the first degree. It was the first time he had conferred a full first degree, which was great. Did a super job. The biggest challenge, and any of the guys that I talked to about this, is I'm like, you got to go just do it. You get to a point where you just got to do it so you can get out of your own head. Yep. And they did both of them did a great job. Are we having an earthquake?
I did not hit the table.
It was not you. I noticed.
I was rooching. I'm sorry. That's a Pennsylvania Dutch word. For those of you that don't know, rooching means to squirming around.
Walls were like shaking.
Sorry.
I swear I didn't do it.
It's okay. Harrisburg and Sistry held our stated meeting where we had a bingo night and had probably 150 people there, which was pretty amazing. Some great food by our stewards. On this past Saturday, I was with the fine brethren, secretary and treasurers in the 10th Masonic District in Macungie, Pennsylvania.
That's a real place.
We were helping them get their audits in line. Samuel C. Perkins Royal Arch Chapter number 209 had our meeting this past Monday. 3 nights ago, I guess. Today's Wednesday, 2 nights ago, where Right Worshipful. I always
Somebody
have to
or other.
get these right here.
Oh, boy. We'll cut this in post. Don't
The
worry.
Grand High Priest.
There it is.
Right Worshipful Grand High Priest Jason Craig was present along with the other Grand Chapter officers. We had a really nice event. We had a great attendance, and a good time was had by all. And then last night, we referred to this earlier in the show, I did a presentation on the Masonic Light podcast to the brethren of State College Lodge number 700 in State College, Pennsylvania.
Very meta.
It was excellent. They taught me to do the "we are." Okay. Not being a Penn State fan, it's like, okay. Seriously, I enjoyed that tremendously, being able to meet the brethren and talk to them. And I actually got text messages from several of them on the way home saying, hey, I just signed up to listen to your podcast.
Nice.
And the worshipful master up there, Doug Maidenford, texted me this morning saying several brethren came up to him afterwards and said they had signed up as well. So we have some new listeners, Larry.
Yes, we do.
We're going to have to up our numbers a bit.
Yes.
All right. And
Can we charge the sponsors more?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
$2.
$2. No, those are our Patreons. We don't want to raise the dues on that.
This chocolate cherry. By
It's
Stephanie.
very good.
Did you get
I'm
it?
telling you what.
You got some?
Cherry
Yes.
bounce.
These are like the
Cherry
best
bounce.
refreshments
I'm
we've
telling
ever
you.
had
Dark
here.
chocolate
do it.
intermezzo by Stephanie.
It
This
even
stuff
got
is
Josh up
just
twice
For a
from his
music
station.
teacher. Can you believe it?
Josh was out of his station twice during this segment.
dirty little secret. That's a good one too.
Uh-huh.
Milk chocolate
Yep.
sounds.
It's caramel
careful,
and
Larry.
Biscoff
This
cookies.
is an audio
That's awesome.
podcast.
Yeah, be careful. People want to know why we don't do YouTube.
There's a reason.
Now you know.
Now you know.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back with our guest, Chris Ruley.
Why choose George J. Grove & Sons for your next home improvement project? At George J. Grove & Sons, we've built our reputation on quality and trust for more than 50 years. For planning to materials to installation, George J. Grove promises a home improvement experience second to none. Whether your goal is reducing energy costs, decreasing maintenance, updating curb appeal, or simply increasing the value of your home, the George J. Grove team will recommend and provide solutions that stand the test of time. Call 717-393-0859 for an estimate or visit us at georgejgrove.com.
And we're back.
We've been back for 10 minutes. Dear listener.
And we're back.
And we're back.
Tonight's guest is Brother Chris Ruley. He is a member in a couple of lodges in the Washington, D.C. area. Federal Lodge number 1.
And Virginia.
And Virginia Lodge,
AW22.
Alexandria number 22.
The Fightin' 22.
Which, for those of you who like to play Masonic trivia, that was George Washington's lodge, as I understand.
That was a lodge in which George Washington was a member.
Correct. It wasn't his original.
It wasn't his Fredericksburg lodge where
Correct.
he was initiated.
Right.
Pennsylvania.
And does that meet at the George?
That's right.
Does that meet at the
That's
George
right.
Washington National Memorial?
It does. It's one of 2 lodges that meet there.
Yes. My lodge just made a rather large contribution to the
The
Thomas
memorial.
Jackson Memorial Wing that's being developed there.
They donated to the other side of the memorial.
The other side?
Yeah.
What's the other side?
The side that's not associated with AW22.
Oh, what side?
Boy.
We had a past Grand
Like
Master
you need
come up
money.
and
Capulets
ask
and
us to do it.
Montagues
Like-
over here.
like
You went to the
you need
Capulets.
money.
We went to the Capulets.
My goodness.
Hey, we're all on the same team.
Me, a poor Montague. No, I'm
We're
sure.
all on the same team.
Yes. Thank you for your donation.
Yes, we heard Chris speak at last year at the Pennsylvania Academy of Masonic Knowledge, and we were all very impressed and bought his book. And I'm not going to ask how many of us actually completed reading it, but we were so impressed that while we were there, we said, "Hey, would you like to come on this not so well known?"
That's right. And I said, who the hell are you?
Yeah, what are you
what are you
all?
asking me
What?
for? What is this?
And without knowing what he was agreeing to, he agreed to be here tonight. So,
Here
Chris,
I am.
welcome.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here.
So talk to us a little bit about, first of all, talk to us about your Masonic journey.
Me?
Yeah, you.
I'm originally from the New Jersey area, but I'm a DC. I started as a DC Mason.
Wait, what part of New Jersey?
Northern New Jersey.
Exit number?
Where?
15W, the Fightin' 15.
There you go.
15W, that's the Meadowlands. North Arlington, New Jersey.
Okay. Yeah,
Bergen
that is
County.
north, yeah.
It's east of, it's west of Hoboken. So if you look at your map, what's the Serpent? I can see Russia I saw New York from my house.
Yeah,
I was that
bet you
close
did,
to New York City. Went to school there, raised there, grad school, undergrad, got a job in D.C., moved to D.C., and that's where I started Freemasonry in D.C. because I didn't want to do the kickball fun leagues on the mall. I was more interested in educational and interesting, enlightenment pursuits. And so I decided, I'm interested in Freemasonry. So let me take a step back. In high school, I had a music teacher who was a Freemason, didn't know what that meant.
Okay.
He was a trumpet player. So if you're playing trumpet, I was not a trumpet player.
Our listeners can't see your fingers.
Well,
so.
when you're a trumpet player, you're usually playing with your fingers exposed. You
Right.
can see your fingers.
Yeah.
And so at the beginning, I think it was the first Wednesday or Thursday of every month, he would wear a Masonic ring.
Okay.
And so I would see this ring that he would never wear except for this one time at the beginning of the month. And I was like, what the hell is this ring about? And he said, I'm a Freemason, my father, and blah, 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 and so-and-so. And I was like, okay. Well, this was at the time when Dan Brown's book came out.
Oh,
geez.
my.
Just barely beat Larry Merris's book out.
That's right. And I saw that, the copyright infringement issues. I saw that, Larry. Well, I listened to it. That's right.
One of the first sponsors.
As you
the
guys
Red
know,
Serpent.
I'm a devoted listener
Larry
to
Merris.
this podcast. Listener, I know the backstory and his pot pie issues from Festivus. Go back and listen to that episode. So I was.
We should give him a
Look at this.
promotion fee.
I'm doing this for you. My God. Anyway, so he would have that ring on, and I was curious about it, and I asked him, so you're in the Illuminati, whatever, blah, 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 blah. You have this. By the way, this guy was, nice, simple dude, just trying to figure it out. He was starting a music program in our high school. He was the nicest. He still is the nicest guy. And he was like, you know what? The fact that you even recognized it and aren't making a joke about it in seriousness. And so we would talk about it. I didn't have any time. I was off to grad school, off to college, off to grad school. I went to the Peace Corps for a couple years. I was in the bush in West Africa for a couple years. And it was one of these things I just had I wasn't thinking about it. Come back home, finish school, get my first real job in D.C., and that's when I was looking for something to do. And that's where Freemasonry came in, and I hit the wall of Freemasonry and I never got out.
So when you came back and decided that you wanted to do that, did you know somebody else that was a Mason?
I didn't. I cold called.
A lodge?
Yes. I looked online. I Googled Masonic lodges in D.C. And I saw one that was historic and all these interesting Masonic things. And I just cold called. I called who turned out to be the secretary of that lodge at the time.
It's very similar.
He's no longer the secretary. Yeah. And I said, "Hey, I've no idea what this is. My family is not associated with Freemasonry. I don't have a grandfather or great grandfather. I'm from Greece. I'm international. I came to Jersey when I was like 2 years old. I don't have a connection to Freemasonry." But I told him the story about my teacher, and he was just this guy who I just loved and adored, and he was just a cool guy who was I wanted to be more like him, and so I thought, I'd like to join Freemasonry. Should I go back to Jersey and do it through there because that's where? And the guy was like, "No, just show up, enjoy the dinners, just meet the guys, see what you like, and if you like it, you can apply." He also gave me some good advice: go to different lodges and Make sure
Always a
you
good
see.
idea,
Yes,
yeah.
go to different
Excellent
lodges.
idea, yes.
Because the culture here is a lot different, and by the way, DC is not like any other jurisdiction in the United States. It's
about that.
it's an all urban makeup. There's no rural lodge. There's no green beans, on a Sunday night kind of thing.
Right, yeah.
DC is its own little territory, right? 10 by 10,
Very Cosmo.
45 lodges in this little area. There's districts that have less lodges, than the District of Columbia. And so I went around and I said, okay, well, here's the lodge I'm going to join. And then I joined the lodge and joined, and then I was one of these guys that's like, well, I want to learn more about everything. I want to see everything that there is. So I voraciously joined Scottish Rite, York Rite. I mean, I did everything within like the first 2 or 3 years. I hit all the things you could hit because I was curious about it, because that was like, well, people seem to be doing all this stuff, so I'm going to do all this stuff. And
Very good.
Yeah.
That's excellent. So what got you into writing about Freemasonry?
History.
Okay.
Masonic history, you'd think, is well covered and documented, and there's plenty of books, and there's great books, and there's not so great books. Unfortunately, it turns out there's not. And it runs the spectrum, just like anything in life. It runs the spectrum of here's a quality book,
Right.
here's a not so quality book. And so I think I was serving as historian, and so about 5 years ago, I was serving as the Grand Librarian and Historian for the Grand Lodge of DC. And I would get requests. People would email me, reach out to me and say, hey, we're doing, an event at the National Memorial. We're doing at the Washington Monument, at the White House. Do you have anything associated to if any president of the United States participated, or senators or congressmen or something? It's DC. Most likely some of these guys
Somebody did,
participated. And so I created a little cheat sheet for myself when I'm doing research, or if I find something, a proceeding or a newspaper. And so I started to collect all this stuff. And so over time, about 2 years in, that list of 30 or 40 activities went to 75 and 125 and 200. And so within the second year, I thought, man, this could be a really nice research paper for the Philalethes or some research organization. And then over time, I kept finding more and more. And so, okay, well, this could be a book. This went from 45 pages to 150 to 200 to 300. And so when I submitted my book, The White House and the Freemasons, it was like 500 pages.
Wow.
8.5 by, not the small standard size for a book, like
This was before the editors.
Word document, 8.5 by 11, and the publisher, nicest guys at McCoy, absolutely love them. The guy came back to me, the publisher said, hey, this is great, cut this down because no one's going to read 600 pages. And so the stuff I cut out of that, which was every single interaction in the White House, every single interaction in and around the District of Columbia and outside the district. In fact, we cut it down so much that I had to focus just on the district and just on the White House, or in the area, in the vicinity. Dinners, initiations, meetings, correspondences, everything. We had to cut it down because the claim was no one's going to read a 600-page book. And then Art de Hoyos publishes, Albert Pike's, Porch in the Middle Chamber, and it's 700 pages, and it's, yay, congratulations. So maybe we'll do a large cut, the Ruley cut in a couple of years of the original document. So yeah, that book, The White House and the Freemasons, what you guys saw my presentation on,
right?
I've been working on for about 5 or 6 years. Now it's 6 years.
And where can someone find that book?
McCoy Publishing. There's also, if you go to a link on my website, chrisruley.com, you'll find the links to that as well as some other books I'm working on. But it came from, so the idea, to answer your question, it came from this idea that Masonic research is just really, let's just say, just focus on the presidency of the United States. It's not as advanced as you think it is. The topics is still nascent. People are still finding new stuff. I mean, I found stuff on Abraham Lincoln that has not been published in Masonic proceedings or Masonic research.
Talk about that.
Well, one of the things I did for the book was I went through every presidential library, every newspaper, every executive White House association, White House Historical Association. And I tried my best to collect all of that because, weirdly enough, these organizations have never had, but have not had a lot of Masons reach out to them and ask them these questions. And so I say, oh, I'm a Masonic researcher. They say, oh, great, we've never had anyone look at these files before. And one of the, and I mentioned this at the presentation, one of the positive effects of COVID, which was the fact that these presidential libraries and the historical associations had to close down. And so in order to meet the demand, they went digital. They started to digitize a lot of these records. So a lot of these presidential records from Gerald Ford's administration and from, Harry Truman started to pop up online. And you could finally, without having to go there, you could finally find it from the comfort of your home. And so I went through every single presidential library, pulled anything I could find on Freemasonry, any letter that Teddy Roosevelt responded to back and forth. I tried to pull it and compiled it. Anything on every non-Masonic president too. There's a lot of information in the book on non-Masonic presidents who engage with the Freemasons, because we have this idea in our mind, right, that it was only the Masonic presidents that the Masons engaged with. That's not true at all. At almost every administration, Masons engaged with the president and try to engage with them and try to find way, let's meet, let's have a photograph, let's, do these kinds of things.
Well, they tended to be industry leaders and leaders of their communities and stuff. So
yes, absolutely. And by the way, it speaks to the fact that I did it. I broke the rule. I broke the rule. It speaks to the fact that Masonry was a public organization. Mm-hmm. We have this vision in our minds, and I know you guys talked about it and joked about it. We say, Freemasonry is a secret society. Oh no, secret society. It's not. It wasn't. It never was. We created this perception only a couple decades ago. Mm-hmm. Freemasonry was never a secret society.
Right.
Tell me a secret society that publishes its proceedings to the public, made available to the public. Mm-hmm. You can see all of our activities. Tell me a secret society that publishes in the newspaper all the activities of who was elected, and not just the good stuff, the bad stuff too, who was kicked out and why they were kicked out. Tell me a secret society that wears aprons as a public thing, right? Or, for example, a cornerstone laying ceremony. A cornerstone laying ceremony is an inherently public activity.
Yep.
We do it for the public's benefit. We don't say, okay, everyone in this town leave for an hour and a half so the Masons can march over and lay this cornerstone and talk about secret ritual and leave. We bring the fraternity, we bring the group to the public, and we talk about the ritual. It's a strange thing.
We tell the world where we meet.
Correct. That's right. That's
Hang big signs out.
Yes.
We got to float in the parade.
This idea, well, that speaks to this idea where we were heavily involved in popular culture. We were heavily involved in society. We were heavily involved. And what does that mean? Well, that means, as a consequence of that, we met our political leaders. We went to the White House. We got photographs. We engaged with them. And vice versa, those political leaders were interested and wanted to engage with the fraternity. When Taft became president of the United States, the night Taft became president, one of the first questions he got after finding out that he became president of the United States is, Mr. President or Mr. President-elect, are you interested in joining the fraternity now that you've become president of the United States? And and you can see, by the way, you can see yourself. I look at my bibliography, go find the newspaper clippings. I'm inviting you, by purchasing this book, to take a look at the records online, which are free to access. In the newspaper, it says, well, Taft responded with, I was a little anxious about courting the Masonic vote because I was anxious about them thinking that I was doing it for electioneering purposes. I'm paraphrasing, but that was the point. The gist was his father was a master mason of his lodge. I believe as a past master. His brothers were also master masons. He was the only one in the family of that line that was not a mason. And so he said, well, I'm interested in joining, but I'll wait until after the election if I'm interested. And so after the election is when but the night of, one of the first questions he gets the night of is, well, Mr. President, congratulations. Are you interested in now joining the fraternity? That's where Freemasonry was in the society, in public. And so in the book, I try to chart that. I try to see where does that come from? What are the fraternal activities? What are the things that Masons did with the presidents and vice versa? What did the presidents think about Freemasonry? How do they engage? How do they not engage? There's a lot of Masons that were, there were a lot of presidents, not a lot, but some presidents who were anti-Masons, not interested in fraternity.
Right. A big part of your presentation at the Academy was people who were tangential to the president.
Yes.
That were Masons or stuff. Any interesting stories that come out of that? I remember the one question I asked, because I keep hearing this with different presidents and different things, is about the White House gardener was the master of his lodge. That's, you know the story I'm talking about? Is that myth?
So that story comes from Roosevelt, and so Teddy Roosevelt, excuse me. There was a guy named Harold V.B. Voorhees by the way, he's one of these founders of the Allied Masonic degrees. He wrote in the Miscellanea a very detailed catalog of Roosevelt's Masonic activities. And in that report, or in that paper, he finds the origin of the gardener story, where after Roosevelt is no longer president, this is when he goes off to Africa, he's in his safari, because he by the way, Teddy Roosevelt goes on safari after serving as president of the United States. He brings back so many cartons and boxes of specimens from his travels that the Smithsonian has yet to complete the catalog of his retrieval.
Wow.
Wow.
Not a lot of people realize that. 10 to 20% of the Smithsonian has actually been cataloged and organized.
Huh.
So anyway, that has nothing to do with Freemasonry. But the reason why I say this is he comes back to the United States, a reporter is engaging with him, and the topic of Freemasonry comes up. And here's Teddy Roosevelt, the man who was, larger than life. Of course I did this. Yes, I laid cornerstones. Yes, I did this. Why, gee golly, when I was, president of the United States, I went and saw, I visited a Masonic lodge back home, and could you believe it? I'm the president of the United States, and I'm humbly sitting down next, and meanwhile, the gardener of my own, I think it was his house or his estate, and he was Master Mason. Could you believe it? And so this was Teddy Roosevelt's, by gum, when I was there, even, look at me. Well, the story, it turns out, Voorhees checks it out, the dates don't match of when he came and was serving as president versus when this guy was serving as master. But we still say, the gardener. He was the gardener. The humble gardener was the worshipful master of the lodge. Meanwhile, the president of the United States sitting in the corner, just a regular master mason.
So a little bit of
the story never checks out, but it's a great story.
Sure, never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
It's like the Harry Truman, Secret Service stories. There's so many iterations of that story. Parts of that are true, but the true story is a lot more mundane that we came, when the president of the United States, I'm more secure, or I'm safer in the lodge hall than I am. That story has so many different variations that are published. You can find them. And so part of the book was actually going through and finding these variations of stories. And in fact, that Secret Service variation story does not come from Truman. It comes from Taft, because when Taft was initiated, he was initiated at sight. I don't know if people realize that.
I did not.
Taft was not initiated through a regular process. He was initiated at sight. When he went back home to Cleveland after being elected and I believe sworn in as president, he went through the process at sight. He comes back to D.C. It's in the book. I don't remember. It's either his surgeon or his staff physician, someone who was close to his office was going to be raised or initiated at one of the lodges in D.C., and so he wanted to come and visit. He goes to the Masonic Temple on 13th Street, which is now the International Women's and the Arts Building. We sold that building in the 80s. He comes to that building. He's with Secret Service staff. He doesn't realize, oh, wait a minute, I don't have a Master Mason to join me.
They can't go in.
Can you believe it? The Tylers stopped the Secret Service. There was a reporter in the New York, in the DC, the reporting gig that actually wrote something to the effect of, the Secret Service had to cool their heels at the door because the Tyler would not allow them to enter. This caused a panic at the White House because they thought, well, wait a minute, what the hell are we going to do now? Because this is something we haven't thought about yet. Mm-hmm. What happens when the President of the United States enters a Masonic lodge and we don't have anyone else? And so Secret Service had to stay at the door while the President was escorted in. The next day or a couple days later, they said, okay, one of you aides to the President has to become a Master
Somebody's
Mason.
joining.
And who did they join? Do you know who the story was?
No.
Archibald Butt. B-U-T-T. Archie Butt, who was major. He was effectively the presidential aide.
Okay.
He was his closest, aide and assistant. Archie Butt joins the lodge, joins Freemasonry. What happens to Archie Butt? Another trivia. He takes a break from his executive services. He takes it, and he's like, you know what? Thanks. I'm interested in having a break. Taft says, yeah, go ahead. Go back to Europe. He's interested. He goes to Europe to do some sightseeing. He purchases a first-class ticket on the Titanic.
No.
So Archie Butt was one of 2 or 3 D.C. inhabitants, D.C. Washingtonians, to be on the Titanic.
Wow.
And who does the Masonic funeral? Oh, I just spoiled it. Who did the funeral for Archie Butt? Masonic Lodge that Butt joined did the funeral, and Taft attended, and he did the eulogy. He did, his duties. It's in the book as well.
Yeah.
It's just this interaction of stories.
Yeah.
But here's another guy. Archie was very active. He was engaged. Apparently the lodge claims, and I've never seen it, and I've asked the lodge, please can you send it to me? The lodge claims to have a letter from Archie when he was over in Europe saying, I can't wait to come back. Everything in Europe is great. This tour is really great, and I'm excited to come back.
I got a ticket on this great new boat.
Have you heard of it? The Titanic. Yeah. Some guy named Leo. No.
I'll tell you all about it when I get home.
There's 2 kids standing out front holding. No.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back with the Masonic author, Chris Ruley.
As far back as the mid-1800s, records exist describing the pre-meeting tradition of brethren smoking cigars during and after gatherings. To this day, the practice of smoking cigars remains very much alive in many lodges. This custom is considered a time for brethren to relax, exchange ideas, and enjoy the simplicity and fellowship that is the very essence of our brotherhood. This is what Hiram Solomon Cigars is all about. Our starting principles are to bring Masonic brethren together in the harmony of a good cigar. Pull up a chair, sit back, light up any of our premium cigars, and enjoy the history. Hiram Solomon Cigars can be found at fine cigar retailers. For a complete list, visit HiramSolomonCigars.com or check them out on social media to find out when they'll be at a live event near you. Hiram Solomon Cigars is pleased to be the official cigar of the Masonic Light Podcast.
And we're back. Hey, I haven't done this in a long time, have I?
Let's see where you go with it.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, we're back with our guest, Chris Ruley, tonight, and we're having some fascinating conversations, really fascinating. And at dinner tonight,
Yes.
we kind of migrated into a discussion on the Marquis de Lafayette.
Yes.
And you're working on your new book, which will give you a little bit of promotion on that.
Thank you.
Which is about I think you told us is about to go to the editor, and it's about his life, or or was it just when he came to the United States?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, sort of like the White House and the Freemason book that I wrote, where I catalog every Masonic activity with the presidents, I had a lot. I got some through that research. I found a little kernel about the Marquis de Lafayette because he visited the United States in 1824, 1825. And that little piece of kernel that was in my book, I thought, that's interesting because he's a Freemason. I wonder if I can do a little part in my White House book on him. And then I found so much stuff on it, and it became this weird side quest of like, I wonder if I can start collecting more. And then it became its own separate book. And so what I've been working on the last 3 years, or two, now it's 3 years because we're in the next year, but is cataloging his Masonic activities in the United States when he did his big 1824, 1825 tour. We know through newspapers, journals, biographies, etc., that he didn't really do much in his first tour. So Marquis de Lafayette visited the United States a couple times. In the first time, he came because it was the American Revolution. He came, I believe, in 1789. I want to say 1794 he also came. So he visited a couple times, in other words. But now it's 50 years later, or close to 50 years later. It's 1824. He's the last surviving major general of the American Revolution. By the time we get to that point, Lafayette is somewhat in a precarious position. Not a lot of people realize this. If you go and read up on Lafayette and study Lafayette, I think the general conception of Lafayette is that he was this young, inexperienced officer that comes to the United States, joins the Revolutionary War, is gung-ho, interested about serving in the military, works under George Washington, a couple different skirmishes, pins Cornwallis down at Yorktown. I did it again. Pins Cornwallis down at Yorktown, and then basically helps George Washington win the war. Because if it wasn't for Lafayette pinning Cornwallis at at Yorktown, he would have been able to get out and flee and move, because Yorktown, they were building a port to attack Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. Well, at the same time, Lafayette goes back on furlough for a couple months and goes back to France and negotiates to bring the French into the fight with Benjamin Franklin's support. He gets Franklin and Lafayette to basically help get the French government to support this idea of bringing over troops, where you get Rochambeau and all these interesting generals to come and support. And so through Lafayette, we get the Revolutionary War. We get a victory through the Revolutionary War. Lafayette goes back to France, and here's this young guy who's like, great, we accomplished something unthinkable in the United States. He goes back to France, and he hits the wall of the French Revolution. Mm-hmm. Because he thinks, well, it's going to be easy. We did it in the United States. Of course it's going to be easy. We can just replicate what we did here. And so what happens is, in an attempt to support the French revolutionaries, he finds himself in a precarious position because he's now in the middle. He is part of the upper class. He's part of the French monarchy. Right. And so who is this guy who leaves and comes back and now wants to remove us or take us out of our current position? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, the revolutionaries are looking at him and go, who is this guy who all of a sudden wants to support us but wants us to have a constitutional monarchy? No, we're interested in something more than that. We want to go towards full democracy. We don't want the monarchy here, end of statement. So in an attempt to support both sides, he alienates both sides. And so at one point, he basically has to leave and flee the country. He flees with his family through Belgium and is basically captured by the Austrians. And he he is incarcerated in a prison for 5 years in Olmütz. You can research this all yourself.
It's in Duncan's book, Hero.
Yes, that's right.
That's where I read that. Yeah.
And there are several attempts by American expats to get him out,
yes,
and including 1 or 2 prison breaks to try to get him out. Yep. How does he get out? Napoleon Bonaparte marches through with the armies and basically secures that area and basically says, we're negotiating to get him out. Now, Napoleon is a lunatic. He thinks, I freed Lafayette. Of course he's going to join me and support my cause. And Lafayette says, I'm not interested. Because over this entire period of him trying to, work towards the revolution and support a gradual shift, he is basically alienated. No one likes him. He loses all political and social capital. He's then arrested. He's in prison for 5 years in the worst possible conditions. This guy made America, helped create America, and he's stuck in a prison for 5 years. And so Lafayette at this time is like, I'm not interested in this. I'm not interested in you. Let's bring back the monarch. I'm okay if we bring back the monarchy in very limited terms. I'm not interested in this. And so he spends the next 5 to 10 years trying to get money and his estate back, because the French government basically seizes his property, seizes all his money. The fortune, the super rich Lafayette that comes to America is not the guy who's stuck in prison. They're gone. That Lafayette is dead. And here's Lafayette spending the rest of his time trying to seize back or take back or get back his familial land and property and money, and he doesn't get there. And so by the time we get to 1824, which is, actually 1823, when he indicates, I am interested in coming back to the United States. And we're getting close to the American Revolution. We're getting close to the 50-year anniversary of the American Revolution. So maybe it might be a good idea. That little idea, that kernel, gets transported, and the American expats in France and the United States start to talk and say, Lafayette's interested in coming back. Should we bring him back? Of course we should bring him back. He's Marquis de Lafayette. He's the last major general, the last surviving major general under George Washington. We should have him come back. And so the American Congress and the White House, James Monroe was the president at the time, said, let's bring him back. We'll pay for it. We'll get him a vessel to come over. We'll take care of everything, because, by the way, he's still in debt. One of the things people don't realize is Lafayette was in debt, and he could not afford to take a private shuttle from France back to the United States at the time. It was through American expats and the American government that paid his debts to allow him to come back to the United States. Meanwhile, this man is 66 years old. He comes back to the United States, and he basically does this farewell tour. Now, they find out, so this is March of 1824, they find out he's interested in coming back. He has agreed to come back. Fantastic. He sets the date. He's going to leave France around July. He leaves France in July, and meantime, from March to July, there are committees that are set up all around the United States. People are having conversations. Okay, do we want to invite him? What are we going to do? Let's host a banquet. Let's host an affair. Let's host a ball. Let's have him come for a Masonic meeting. Those dates are lining up with activities in the American Revolution. So let's do cornerstone laying ceremonies for certain events like Yorktown and Bunker Hill and all these things. And so he basically is part of these anniversary activities. He's invited to come to these anniversary activities. It's Beatlemania. I call it the original Beatlemania, because wherever he goes, wherever part of town he comes in, he is welcomed by the best. He is occupying the best hotel, the best food is offered to him, everything is taken care of. This man who has no money, by the way, is occupying, he gets a coach, he is riding in the best car, and everything is given to him to support him, and he basically goes around the entire United States, 25 states, and he is welcomed as a hero of the Revolution. There are very few left. There are very few founding fathers left. Thomas Jefferson is barely alive. Because remember, he was one of the younger founding fathers. Thomas Jefferson is alive. Lafayette is alive. I want to say John Adams. Excuse me.
Died on the same day.
That's right. John Adams is alive. Yep. There's a couple remaining of those guys. And so he visits them.
But they're really old.
Very old. And so, by the way, every reporter is watching everything that he does during this trip. He comes to the United States. He arrives in August 1824. His first activity is in August in New York City. He then goes up to Massachusetts, There's a social activity there. He goes back down to New York City. His first Masonic activity, September 11th, 1824, is initiated into the Royal Arch and the Knights Templar.
Wow.
By Americans.
Yep.
A couple days later, initiated into the Cerno Scottish Rite.
Uh-oh.
Bum, bum, bum.
Somebody call Seth.
Then goes down to Washington, D.C., goes down to Yorktown, goes down south, spends some time there in the winter. 1825, goes down to the southern states. Mid-1825, goes up the western boundaries, Ohio, Tennessee, Louisiana, goes up and then goes all the way over back to Massachusetts for Bunker Hill, which is the largest Masonic activity at that time because they lay the cornerstone of the Bunker Hill Monument, and then goes back down to Washington, D.C. So it's 13 months. He's basically traveling around the country. Now, here's the thing. Masonic historians have captured, I want to say, about 20 of the Masonic activities that he does during this time, because there at certain points he meets with Masons. And we know this because there's records of it. There's lodge minutes, there's newspaper reports, there's all these interesting things. So Masonic historians have captured about 20 to 30 Masonic activities. I spent 3 years cataloging and trying to find every little hint of any Masonry associated with Lafayette. And I found 65 Masonic activities and engagements and correspondences and all these things. And so I put that all in a book. So when you go through it and you can see Lafayette's activities from Washington, D.C., or New York City, all the way down to Washington, D.C. before he leaves. And my idea is I'm not trying to prove that Lafayette was a great Mason. He was, but there's never been a catalog of all his activities ever done before to this extent. And so that was the goal of the book, to try to get everything in one book as a reference guide.
So does it reference like different things in the state of Pennsylvania?
Oh, yeah. I have a record of all the activities he did in Pennsylvania.
Because I knew there
and in Western Pennsylvania, by the way.
yes.
Just not just in Philadelphia.
Right.
But there was activities in Western Pennsylvania. And I tried my best to reach out to every Grand Lodge, every lodge. I went to the Conference of Grand Masters and basically talked about Lafayette and said, please, if there's any records you have, I'd love to collect them. My goal is to get everything in one book so that could be a resource for Masons. The idea is I don't care about the money. I'm literally making this for you so Masons can go out and learn about Lafayette. Lafayette is one of the most important Freemasons in the United States. He was one of the most important Freemasons in general because, like George Washington, he was a soldier, statesman, and Freemason. And there are very, very few of them that were ever created or existed in the United States.
So 24 would have been where relative to the anti-Masonic movement? Would that have come in
5 to 6 years?
Really close.
5 to 6 years before. And in fact, I talk about that in my book.
Okay.
I make an argument, and I've never seen it anywhere else, that the public Masonic activities that occurred welcoming Lafayette was a contributor to anti-Masonry.
Just because it's
here
brought
it
it
is.
up into the public eye. So
Wherever Lafayette went, if there was a Masonic presence, here's what he did. Wherever Lafayette went, he first met with the civil government. So he met with the governor, he met with the mayor, he met with whomever. What was the second group he met with? He met with the military, former revolutionary officers, military officers, generals, etc. Who was the third group he met with? The Masons. So there's that trifecta
right.
that occurred.
Shadow government.
That occurred. No, come on. No.
I had to say it. Come on.
No. Here's the reason why. What's the military? Or excuse me. What's the
Civil government.
Civil government is your government.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
2, duty to one's country through military service. 3, Freemasonry, intellectual, educational, aspirational, devotional. Those are the 3. You've got service to your country, you've got service through military, through protection, and you've got education and empowerment through yourself, through education.
Fascinating.
Through Freemasonry. He hit all 3. And in every major, not every town, but in almost every major cosmopolitan area, he is the one that accepted invitation. He didn't have to. The man was 66 years old, 67 years old. Almost every day, he met with 30 or 40 different groups. Imagine, every day for a year, you traveled around the country every day, and you had a speech and a talk and a conversation and engaged and met with people and kissed babies, shook hands every day. They make American political campaigns look like nothing compared to what Lafayette was doing. For no purpose, just because he wanted to do it and he supported it and he liked it. And so one of the good things is because a lot of reporters followed Lafayette during this period, I got exactly what he wrote. I got his speeches. I got what Masons said. I got everything because reporters tended to be also Masons, and they were in the lodge room. And they recorded word for word what was going on. And so you have this one resource to learn about this entire trip through Masonry.
Great.
I think it's interesting, too, that he visited the Brandywine battlefield.
He did. That's right.
He did. And he stayed in Westchester that night. The following day, he departed for Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
That's right. He attended many.
And a huge Masonic parade. It was,
yes.
If you read the articles in the newspaper, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
The turnout of people.
Did they have chicken pot pie? I'm just asking for a friend.
And here's the thing.
Probably.
It was the earliest coordinated Masonic activity that ever happened in the United States. And by coordinated, I mean coordinated between Grand Lodges. Because
they actually
you
talked
had
to each other.
Because you had to figure out, well, when is he coming? How does this work? Delaware, the Grand Lodge of Delaware, met him at the state line from Pennsylvania and Delaware and basically escorted him to his next spot.
It's amazing that happened. Back then, there was no internet. There was no telephone service. Today, we can't even organize a pancake breakfast.
Well.
What?
And so I make this argument that Lafayette's visit to the United States exacerbated anti-Masonry.
How? I mean,
Well, think about it.
So in your face.
It's in your face. Well, wait a minute.
So anybody who's not a Mason is now annoyed by this guy.
Here's a guy who came over to. Here's a guy who was George Washington's, right-hand man, young George. Because every speech associated with George Washington or every speech associated with Lafayette included George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, all the key big guys. And so you're not a Mason, and you're seeing Lafayette visit your town. Oh, gee whiz, I wish I could come to your factory, but unfortunately I'm visiting the Masons that night. Or, oh, the Masons have a banquet that night. I can't attend. I'm sorry. I'm heading over to there. Or, look what the Masons are doing. These are men. They're educated. They're soldiers. They're officers.
Interesting.
They're leaders of our community. Why wouldn't I join them? Or why wouldn't I support them? Of course I'm going to support them. Here's a guy who's showing off the fraternity and showing the benefits of the fraternity. He didn't have to, but he did because it really
created the early conspiracy theories around.
Well, I wouldn't say conspiracy theory, but I think he certainly exacerbated. I think he certainly talked about. It was one of the earliest. In other words, it was one of the earliest public Masonic activities.
Uh-huh.
The cornerstone laying of the United States Capitol in 1793, when Washington did it. There were only a handful of people there. How do we know about it? We know about it because there's a newspaper report.
Right, newspaper report.
But imagine this guy traveling all around the country, meeting with Masons when he gets there, attending their meetings, attending their balls, attending their ceremonies, and then saying, well, I'm out. I've got to go to the next meeting. And then they go off.
And in every state, there's a Masonic connection. And
there's a Masonic connection.
And in every state, there's a wake behind him of people who are aggravated by the fact that he shorted them.
Yeah.
He didn't attend our, cornerstone.
Right.
He didn't attend
that's an interesting twist.
I make an argument. I'm not saying it's true. I'm making a pitch, a hypothesis that he exacerbated the anti-Masonic sentiment that you can see in the next 4 years.
So are you still collecting Lafayette information?
As of this recording, my publisher we are in lockdown mode. So everything that's locked, we are locking in.
They're only cutting at this point.
So if you've got a story or you've got a relic or something from your lodge, congratulations. I've reached out to your Grand Lodge. They haven't responded because I would have known. Or if they did respond, they just didn't include you, and I'm sorry I didn't include your relic or your item or something.
All right,
so
super
to all
important.
Of you Grand Lodges out there that didn't.
We love you. I already
nerdy,
reached out.
Shame on you.
I've already reached out.
Super important question. Wait a minute.
Yes,
super
go ahead,
question.
Jack.
That apron that hangs in the Grand Lodge of Philadelphia. What's the scoop?
It's not Lafayette.
It's not.
No, they'll even tell you it's not Lafayette's.
Okay.
Well, here's the thing about that apron.
Was it made in Pakistan? Because they're all coming from Pakistan now.
Oh, now I can't comment about what's going on now. Okay, here's the truth about the Washington aprons.
Yeah.
There was a podcast, not you guys because you're good. There was another podcast who had, by the way, this is true. There was a podcast done out there, and some guy wrote a book on George Washington that's not Mark Tabbert. Because I would agree with Mark Tabbert.
Right.
Oh, he's a doctor of history.
Uh-oh.
We've got to listen to him because he's a doctor of history.
That narrows it down.
That's true. Anyway, he wrote this book, and he was talking about George Washington. He includes all these things, and he goes on this podcast. I was incensed. I was going to write a letter. I was going to, that's how bad it was. I was going to type out in my stationery, write a letter. Anyway, he claims, well, George Washington had this apron, and Madame Lafayette made this apron and gave it to Lafayette, so when he traveled back to the United States, he'd give it to George Washington. There's no record of it. Where did that story come from? Well, in the book, George Washington and his Masonic compers, probably butchered that. You're going to get letters. I'm sorry.
None of our listeners can write.
In 1904, 1905, turn of the century, this one historian in Pennsylvania writes, well, George Washington received several aprons, and this is one of them, and it was manufactured by Marquis de Lafayette's wife. And it was given to Lafayette, so when he traveled across the United States, he would give it to George Washington when he visited Mount Vernon. And it's true that Lafayette visited George Washington Mount Vernon during one of the periods, I think it was 1789 before his death, or 1787. Someone's going to tell me I'm wrong, I don't care. It's one of those in that period before Washington dies. Mm-hmm. There's no record of an apron. There's no record of it all. Now, what is actually true? George Washington, in his will or in his final papers, there mentions 2 aprons. There are 2 aprons that are known to be associated with George Washington. It is the Watson Consul apron, which we have paperwork. There's a letter from an American merchant and a French merchant who basically make an apron for George Washington commemorating Yorktown.
Okay.
And they give it to Washington, and that apron goes to AW22, and we have that. We've got the paperwork. The paperwork, by the way, spotless, clean. There's a letter. There's even Washington's response to acknowledging receiving the apron. We've got that. There's another apron called the Mount Nebo apron, and that is the one that you see at Mount Vernon. It matches the Watson Consul apron in terms of the style, not necessarily exactly, but it's the same art, not the same exact artwork, but it's very similar. And then there's this other apron, this Lafayette apron, quote unquote, that they have in Pennsylvania. Well, Mark Tabbert took this apron and basically had it examined. What we know is that it is contemporary to George Washington's time. Chinese, Manchurian, Asian, the silk comes from an East Asian country. It may have been given to George Washington, but it was likely, if it was given to George Washington, it was given as a symbol of like, hey, look what the type of manufacturing we can do from China. There is no record of Lafayette. There is no record of Lafayette's wife spinning. Lafayette's wife, who does not know anything about the Masonic ritual, all of a sudden going, okay, well, tell me more about this ritual so I can handcraft this apron. We have no record of her writing, cultivating, manufacturing any aprons, but all of a sudden she makes an apron for George Washington. There's no record of it. But the story, like many other stories in life, gets passed around like the telephone game. Mm-hmm. And so that story evolves and changes and shifts. And so there's periodicals that are written about it. And all of a sudden, Mount Vernon just recently published the story. They said, allegedly. And I was one of the morons that posted and they said, this is not true. Here are the reasons why. And then I swear to God, a guy responded and goes, well, you're clearly not, you've never traveled, or you're not a master mason, so you wouldn't know what the hell you're talking about. Swear to God. Someone actually said that.
Wow.
Well, you're not a master mason, so what would you know about Freemasonry and aprons?
Au contraire.
Au contraire. Anyway.
All right. We're going to take another break. All right, Larry.
Go ahead, Larry.
It was
Go
interesting.
ahead.
When he visited Brandywine, does anybody know why he went to Brandywine?
He got lost.
Brandywine, he was shot at Brandywine. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. Excuse me. I'm sorry, Larry. Go ahead.
It was the Battle of Brandywine. It was one of the first commands Washington gave him. And he commanded a division or something like that.
Correct.
But unfortunately, the British kind of did a sneak around him.
That's right.
And they caught him. And he lost a lot of men. And he was wounded. He was, I think, shot in the leg.
That's right.
Refused medical attention. Didn't want it. Kept on wanting
and
to fight.
Secured.
Finally, they had to pull him out of there.
Who pulled him out? Past master.
Larry Merris.
There was a mason.
Steve.
There was a mason that pulled him out. And there's actually at the Society of Cincinnati, they have a portrait of the brother who was a past master who pulled Lafayette. He was the mason that pulled him out.
Yeah.
To try to survive, try to keep him alive.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, but he ordered a successful retreat at Brandywine.
So I can't imagine him going back there in 1824, revisiting that site and remembering all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, think of a guy who's in the last 40 years.
Yeah.
He comes back to visit back when what happened. You know what happens 40 years ago? You go back into your old haunts 40 years ago and see all the activities. But it just so happened that 40 years ago you were working towards the revolution of a country.
Yeah.
That's a powerful statement.
Do you think he had any PTSD?
I would think so.
Yeah.
Just didn't know what it was called.
I think. Yeah. I think war does a lot. I mean, listen,
absolutely.
there's plenty of veterans, and thank you for their service and everything. I mean, you know exactly. It's a tough thing, so I can certainly understand. And by the way, he was a very emotional person.
Yeah.
You know, when you read the newspaper clippings and things, he cried. He was very emotional on certain things. I mean, his son, by the way, took soil from Bunker Hill and at his funeral poured the soil onto his grave and back in France.
Another thing too they didn't realize is I'm going to go with it. Let me alone.
Go ahead. Ignore
Larry,
me.
He had
on the zone.
He had a phenomenal wife who loved that man like you wouldn't believe. I mean, they were married, 2 months? He comes to the United States. She's over there.
A different time.
Yeah, different. Well,
Nothing like separation to keep a marriage going.
But every time they,
No comment.
Every time he came home on some kind of a leave, she got pregnant. So I mean,
George Washington Lafayette, that was his son's name, and he brought his son and a guy named Andre Levasseur, who was his secretary, and so we know a record of all the activities because Andre took a record of it and published a 2-volume book about the entire trip. Now, here's the thing I didn't tell you. During his trip up the Ohio River in 1825, his ship capsizes, shipwrecked, over in midnight on the Ohio River. The boat, the steamboat that they're on, hits some type of obstruction and capsizes and destroys the boat, and it shipwrecks the boat. On the boat is hundreds of thousands of dollars, Masonic items, certificates, ribbons, jewels, all the things that you would have.
Let me guess, they were
Lafayette lost it all. So we don't have a record. Lafayette never published a record of his activities because his papers were on the boat.
Oh, wow.
When he visits Mount Vernon, George Washington Parke Custis, who basically is the manager of the Mount Vernon, not really manager, but of the Mount Vernon estate, gives him George Washington's Masonic jewel and a sash. It's gone. It's gone with Lafayette. It's gone under that river. We don't know where it is. There's no record of it. So all these certificates and jewels and all the things that he receives during his trip are basically lost during this shipwreck in the Ohio River. Who knew? You know, imagine if that survived, if he actually made it to whatever his next destination was, what kind of records he would have had of Masonic stuff and jewels and ephemera. I mean, it would have been amazing.
He could have started a pin wall.
He could have started a
in his
pin wall.
podcast
Absolutely.
studio. Yeah.
So all of the Masons between Pittsburgh and Paducah, Kentucky, are now going out looking for the
Running.
The little
lost,
metal detectors out there.
the
In
metal
Ohio.
detectors on the bottom
I'll
of
tell
the
you.
Ohio River.
Find me George Washington's jewel. That's the true Holy Grail.
There you go.
It could be down in the. It could be down around Louisiana by now.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. All right. Well, our Spotify and iHeart are telling us we got to take another break. So when we come back, we are going to hear from Brother Walter. We're going to play Copious Dues, and then we'll wrap up tonight with Brother Chris Ruley.
In Masonic news today, popular Masonic author and blogger Chris Hodap has made a public apology, releasing the details of a conflict arising out of the Grand Orient of Winnebago concerning its public disrespecting of streamlined travel trailers. Arguments about mileage and uneven tire wear have proven to be untrue. Mea culpa, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. That's the Masonic news. So mote it was.
That's freaking awesome.
Ouch. Too soon. Too soon, Walter.
You're right on target.
Too soon. Wow.
Love you, Chris.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
We stand with you, Chris. You're good. All right. So, Jack, do you know what time it is?
It's time for Copious Dues.
Yeah.
Playing tonight is our guest, Chris Ruley, and we're going to do our best to guess how much money Chris Ruley pays every year in Masonic dues. So, let's start with Joshua.
$862.41.
Ooh,
Is this an over/under? Is this Price is Right?
must be
without going over.
Yeah, must.
All right.
Can't go over. Can't go.
All right. All right.
All right.
I've got the number, by the way. I actually did
Yep.
my homework.
He did.
Larry Merris.
$649.
$649. Tim Dedman. How much does Chris Ruley spend in copious dues?
I was paying attention to the earlier parts of the show,
Oh.
and so
Uh-oh.
I'm going to guess $927.72
Is that the most?
so far
In this episode.
in this episode.
No way. Oh, yes, in the episode.
My guess, $1,001.
All right, let's
So-
review. Let's review.
Let's review. Tim, tell us, what are our guesses so far?
So from low to high, Larry guessed $649. Joshua guessed $862.41. I guessed $927.72. And Jack guessed $1,001.
I bet it's 1,000 and I'm over.
So, Chris Ruley, tell us, how much do you spend every year in copious dues?
Just dues.
1070.
Wow.
1070.
Jeez.
I'm over. No, I'm under.
You're under. You're under. You got it.
Jack wins.
1070.
I finally won one.
You better put it up on the board. You never really win.
I have a question. Does high 12 count? No, I'm just joking.
It is a Masonic.
It is, apparently.
Was that in your total?
Yes, it was. I was
Okay.
joking. Yes.
What? Did I win?
You did win.
Wow, look at that.
How do I don't even know how I'm keeping track.
I don't either.
Never mind. That's fine.
It's just a number.
I know I won. So, that's
And really, that's important.
That is very important.
Huzzah.
Absolutely. All right. So, before we go to our closeout, we need to let you know how you can connect with us on all of our social media posts and so on. You can reach us at Masonic Light on Facebook, on Twitter, on X, and on Instagram. You can contact us via Gmail at masoniclightpodcast@gmail.com. And if you would like to record a message to us with something like in some of our earlier episodes where folks gave their name and recorded, and you're listening to the Masonic Light Podcast.
This is Irving Schwartz.
Or if you'd like to complain about Larry,
Never.
you can call and leave us a voicemail. Larry, what is our phone number?
It is 315-59 MASON.
Absolutely.
I prefer numbers, so it's 315-596-2766.
I'm going to erase those numbers.
And I guarantee you, we are monitoring that line
Yes.
as opposed to years ago when Pete had it and we had 2,000.
We had 10 years worth of voicemail messages.
Oh, no. Jerry, Reagan's dead. Call me
Yes.
back.
Right. 1315-59 Mason.
There you go.
Wow. If you listen to our earlier episodes, that we talked about that a lot.
Yeah, we did.
So that was good. All right. So, what have we got coming up in the next week or so, Larry?
Tall Cedars brunch last Saturday of the month. Goose and Gridiron, of course. That's pretty much it.
Josh?
Nothing coming up until after next episode, I don't think.
Oh.
Correct me, Tim.
You've got something coming up. Jack?
Well, let me go to my month view.
Now we've got Jack looking at his calendar going,
This Saturday, I will be attending the Academy of Masonic Knowledge in
yes.
Elizabethtown.
hello.
All right. Good guess.
I mean, Saturday I have...
A lot. I may or may not hit Pilgrim Preceptors. 18 is Demolay Day, so I'm going to be engaging in my Legion of Honor responsibilities for Demolay Day. We have an extra meeting on the 20th. I have chapter on the 21st. I have a membership growth and retention, whatever, the engagement committee meeting on the 23rd, Uber Grotto on the 24th, and Joshua Association on the 27th. So I will not be here recording on the 27th.
Mm-hmm.
So
Who do you think you are?
it's the Joshua Association. Come on, Joshua. Joshua. All right. Very good. So it's a busy Masonic couple of weeks.
It is indeed. Brother Chris, how about you? What do you got coming up?
If you are a Pennsylvania Mason, you may be interested to know on April 18th in Shrewsbury, I will be doing my book talk.
Really?
Books, Masonry, history. I'll even give you the glad hand.
Is that their stated meeting?
I believe so.
Okay.
Christopher Reed,
Yeah.
33rd Degree.
Yep.
He got me invited, and so I'm pleased to see him. April 18th, Shrewsbury. I'd love to see you all, and I'll sit here and not here, but over there, and I'll talk about the book and
I can literally
else.
drive to that lodge with 3 turns.
We did a car show
Yeah.
there once.
We did.
We did.
April 18th, everybody. That is Conan O'Brien's birthday, if anyone cares. April 18th. I will be there.
Is he still alive?
Mr. O'Brien is very much alive.
You don't listen to Team Coco?
Do you know the other significance of the 18th of April?
Not a
Gave
clue
you a
right
big
now.
clue. On the 18th of April in 75,
1992.
Nary
hardly a man is now
Still
alive,
alive,
who
yeah.
remembers that famous day and year.
Of
The night of Paul
Paul
Revere's
Revere.
ride.
That's Silversmith.
That's Silversmith from
Yes.
Massachusetts. Okay, so I've got the aforementioned Academy of Masonic Knowledge. I have a meeting with the Secretaries and Treasurers of Masonic District 1 on the 19th. I'll be attending the Robert Burns Banquet in Harrisburg on the 26th. Ubar Grotto and Cigar Lodge on the 24th. And then on the 30th, Jack, I think you actually have an important thing on your calendar.
30th of what?
March.
Wait, I can't see it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Operatives.
Yeah.
Huzzah.
You're going to be getting a degree, I think.
I am.
Yes, you are.
I'm getting my fort.
You're getting
Congratulations.
your fourth degree.
Fort.
Very good.
Fort.
I have to figure out, I'm not there.
It's after the third.
Oi.
You're from Jersey. You know what
That's
that
right.
sounds like, right?
Gabagool.
Where the dogs
So-
drink water from the gutter.
I'm trying to figure out if second
No comment.
degree operatives, what part of that meeting we can be a part of. I don't think there's much. So.
You're stewards.
Well, I understand that, but what can we...
Nothing.
exactly.
Peasants.
So, anyway.
Peasants.
All right. Great episode, guys. This was really good. Chris, thanks for coming up.
Great show.
Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Before we go,
Yes.
talk to us again, tell our listeners again about your books, where they can find them,
Sure.
and talk about your website.
Sure. So the White House and the Freemasons currently out. Feel free to check that out. Purchase it at your leisure. There are links at my website, chrisruley.com, where you can purchase them. And I also have links where you can get a signed copy if you're interested. The Lafayette book we are, as of this recording, my publishers were locking it in this weekend. So we're going to hopefully have that in the summer. So by the summer, July, August, we should have those books available. But again, chrisrulli.com. If you go on Amazon, feel free to buy the book on Amazon. Please leave me a comment that you like the book after you read it. Please rate and subscribe. By the way, rate and subscribe to this podcast. This is a pretty good podcast. I got to say, this is one of my favorite This is my favorite podcast. Hold on. Let me put a caveat. This
Josh,
is
turn the
my
tape off.
favorite podcast recording of the year, and I've done so many because I go to all these different ones. But this is my favorite one because Larry goddamn Merris right there.
There it is.
There is the man, the myth, the legend.
Larry Pot Pie.
Yeah, there
Larry
you go.
Pot Pie Merris.
No crust.
That's his mafia
noodles.
name, you know.
That's right. Yes. But anyway, thank you so much for having me. Pleasure. It was great to meet you all. Great to hang out with you all. And then maybe in the future I can come back and yell at you for another hour.
Anytime you're in the area, we would love to have you.
Thank you.
Next time you come,
Yes.
we'll meet at my house and we'll have chicken pot pie dinner. And then
I would absolutely love that.
I will make it and I'll put saffron in it too.
Yes. Makes it a little yellow.
Gosh.
Okay, there you
Lord
go.
help us. All right. Josh, I think it's time to cue the banjos and the chickens and get us out of here, Larry.
Yeah, like she's at the front door. Hey, Carol!
Special thanks to Effort of Lodge 665, to Josh Lamberton, our producer and director, Jack Harley, our news director, Tim Dedman, our marketing director, to Michelle Snyder and Doug Maidenford and Austin Schifrin, who are Masonic Light podcast contributors, and to our listeners who always make doing this show worthwhile. This is Larry Merris, and I think thanks for oh, jeez.
Easy for you.
Oh, you almost
Keep it
had
in.
it, Larry. You almost had it.
Keep it in.
Well,
Keep
anyway,
it in.
what I was trying to say was thanks for listening and always have fun and do good. Good night. Thank you.
Do good.
Do good. This is Tim. Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.
Good Lord. Did it
This is NPR.
Let's go smoke a cigar.